Hi, I'm Patricia Durgin, founder of ProfitFromYourMessage.com. Today I'm at the Greater Philadelphia Christian Writers Conference in Pennsylvania. We're talking to several faculty members, two of which we have right here with us. This is Suzanne and Shawn Kuhn, and you're the owner and the operator
of Suzy Q, which is an author promotion firm originally, but we've recently partnered with Christian Writers Guild, Believers Press, a publicity company called Glass Road Media, and so now Suzy Q's brand is expanding as far as our services, and we are author coaches and promoters.
Good heavens.
I know. It's exciting.
That's quite broad, isn't it? And so tell us how you work together, if you would give us an insider's view of how you work together as husband and wife.
Well, it's always a challenge as husband and wife because we're together all the time, and but it gives us an opportunity to focus on authors and to help authors get their message out. Originally, we had helped authors get their message out by owning and operating a small chain of bookstores, and we were putting books in the hands of readers. And so today we have the same mission, but we help authors put their books in the hands of readers.
You both have a rich history in this whole field, don't you?
We've been in the book industry for, sometimes I don't like to say how many years. But it's 27, correct? Yeah.
For both of you?
Yes. Actually, Shawn opened his first bookstore when we were dating. And so, yes, and I was not 12 years old.
Maybe 13.
So we've both done everything from running a register to stocking to Shawn, obviously, as the owner in the company, he did a lot more than I did, but I also was an assistant buyer. They would sometimes send me in to troubleshoot if we had an issue at a store where we weren't quite sure if it was a customer service issue or something like that, so I would go in and work there. And so yeah, we've been in this industry a long time.
We would do author events, and so we loved authors, and we loved the books that they write. And so again, the privilege of working with authors both before their books hit the bookstore shelves, and then after they do, to engage with their public, and it's fun, and it's fun to help them share their stories and bring their messages to readers.
Who are the typical people that Christ brings to you to work with? Is there a target market profile?
I think for us, we pair well with somebody that is commercially viable, at least on some level. In fact, when I do appointments at a conference like this, I look for, a lot of times an author will try to hand me their one sheet. And for me, I'll say, I don't want to look at that one sheet. What I want to see is how you're going to interact with me. So will you tell me what's on this one sheet?
Oh, interesting.
Because I'm looking for, can they engage? How well they engage? Are they personable? Are they uncomfortable? Because even if we work with them, I need to know what their strengths and their weaknesses are. If somebody is very shy and concerned about interacting with people, I will not necessarily focus them on a retail strategy. I'll focus them maybe more on a social media strategy and then bring them along towards other things. So for us, we're looking for that connection, but our authors range from New York Times bestselling authors to debut independently published authors and all the way in between.
How do they find
They often find us winsome, but other than that, they'll either find us at writers' conferences or through our website or word of mouth. And again, we've had a long history in the book business.
It's natural, isn't
Yeah,
it? It's a
very
natural
much so.
thing.
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell us if someone dreams of working with you? What would you say the first three things they need to do are?
That is I love that question. I don't know that I've actually ever been asked that before, and I love it.
So
I can tell though Shawn's formulating a thought here.
I would think, though, every author has to answer the question, so what, who cares, and then why you? And if you can answer those three questions, then you know who your market is, and not only do you know who your market is and how we're going to approach them, but when they answer why you, it really determines whether they have confidence in their message. Because authors today must go out and be their biggest cheerleader and promoter. That is whether they are published by one of the big 5 publishing houses in New York or published in somebody's garage.
That's right.
You still are responsible for selling your book.
That's really disappointing to people who hear it for the first time. It breaks their heart. But it's a fact of life, and anybody that would be in this time in history, that would be the guidelines, the standard, Christ would help them to meet that standard.
Correct.
And one of the ways that he helps them meet that standard is through you and your service. How does that enrich your life to work with the people and care about things that you care about, words and books and helping people?
I love it. I mean, I do what we call meet and greets, where we'll take some of our authors into retail stores, and I am often found as I walk through and maybe I'm asking to speak to the manager or whatever, you'll see me just running my hand along books. I just love books. I find them comforting. I love the stories. I love the memories of the stories that linger with me. And so to be able to partner with somebody and know, particularly as a Christian, that with many of the authors that we work with, that God has inspired the story that they're writing, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, whether it's towards adults, young adults, or children, that it's God inspired. For me, it feels a little bit like Aaron coming alongside and holding up Moses' arms. And being able to help them in their journey and their call that God has on their life. So for me, I love everything about it.
And I would say that recently we were in a general market bookstore with a New York Times best-selling author who writes a Christian book. And there were 2 20-something manager and assistant manager in the store. And it was a smaller store and not necessarily interested in faith-based issues, but wanting to sell books to keep their jobs. And when we came through the door and introduced them to this New York Times best-selling author who is faith-based, it is the first New York Times best-selling author they ever met.
Oh,
and
how
so
exciting.
Because again, it's a small store. They don't get the Grishams or the Kingsburys. Maybe they get a local author. So their connection with the author was huge.
Oh, it's amazing.
And it was almost life-changing for them. And we go into a store like that hoping that our author will sell more books. But in reflection on that, I think that these 2 employees will read the faith-based book and have a confrontation with the gospel that they may not have had before, because this author cared to meet them and just be with them. And so it was a wonderful experience. Now, the byproduct is going to be, his book will be a constant, will never be out in their store ever again, because of the connection that he made with the management of that small store. But we don't know the eternal value of that connection.
He did that because that's who he is.
Yes.
Yes.
He has a servant's heart.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's very accomplished is a byproduct of the servant's heart.
Correct.
Yes.
And partnering with them on whatever level is so wonderfully enriching to know that the cycle is beautiful to see, isn't it?
It really is. It genuinely is.
Do your clients typically stay for an event or a specific book launch, or are they long term? Is there a pattern?
Really, honestly, it varies. I would be curious to hear your answer, but we are contract work. So sometimes an author will come to us just because they want to go to a retail trade show with us and have that interaction in the Susie Q booth with retailers.
Okay.
And then we have other authors. We have an author right now that he's been with us how many years?
2 years.
2 years. And that's been continuous. So it really depends. As far as like the coaching aspect, we have found that the average is between 3 and 6 months.
Okay.
In fact, so much so that we only offer one-on-one coaching, and it's a minimum of 3 months. And the reason for that is because if we're going to launch a campaign, we have to have enough time to ramp it up, and that there's enough value added to it, and so that's why we put that limitation on it. But I would say it's really varied. I'm going through my client list in my head, and I'm thinking it really is very varied.
I'm assuming that you have people say, I would have talked to you X number of months or years ago if I had known I should have or could have. What makes people a good candidate for your services?
If they know that they have a message to share and they want to write a book, they're a good candidate for us. And in fact, one of the questions I'm often asked is, at what point should I hire you? And my answer is now. And that's wherever they are in their writing journey. And it's because you always need to be contacting and connecting with an audience and growing that audience. And so if you know that you have a book that'll be coming out in 18 months from now, and you know that, you need to begin to plan now. But what if you knew that and you didn't know to contact me, and so now your book was released 6 months ago? It's still the same thing. We need to be growing your audience now. But I think that's one element. I think I wish authors realize that at the point they know they're going to write, they need to be building a platform right then.
Sometimes people are reluctant to hire someone like us because they're watching their money, and we always say we want to spend your money like we'd spend our own. But when you're making a decision to independently publish, if you were to traditionally publish, your publisher may spend somewhere a low of $5,000 to $15,000 to publish your book. Cover, editing, interior design. If you're going to spend your own money on that, to spend an extra percentage to make sure that you have somebody who's already been down that road or met people who have been down that road, it grieves me when someone says, I wish I'd met you sooner. And I do too, because, I just love to help them. You are to be a good steward of God's money. And that comes to even when you publish your own book. And
have you heard stories? I'm a big believer in the spiritual principle. We don't have to borrow money to do God's work. And yet, that doesn't mean that because I don't have money in the bank that I shouldn't be talking to people and knocking on doors and exploring the possibilities. I've met this person, I'm interested in working with them. Would it be possible that Christ would fund that in some other way besides from me going into debt? Do they come to you and they say, I'm not sure how it's going to work, but I want to do this. I believe that Christ wants me to take this step with you.
I'd love to say yes, but I can't. We've had a couple of people that have, where we move forward and then God provides. But I think a lot of people, if they don't have the funding, it can stall them, which is a shame, because I do think there needs to be an element of faith. The other aspect is if they have a book, one of the messages that I really try to communicate is if you already have a product, by hiring us, you're going to be selling more because we're going to be equipping you to sell more. But again, that's the whole, can you guarantee that return on investment? And I can't.
It's not scientific, is it?
No. So, but I would say, actually, as far as people mobilizing their faith that God's going to provide, I wish I could say yes, but I can't.
It may be taking place, but they just haven't vocalized it to you.
And that may be, yes, that may be.
May very well have taken place.
And I will say that we have had clients that come back to us a year later, 6 months later, even 2 years later, and say, I was not able to until now, but I always knew I wanted to hire you from the time I met you or the time we met or whatever.
That's got to touch your heart.
Oh, my word, it does. And so I will say that has happened where maybe they come back once the financing falls into place.
Which, if it's not right today or this year, does not mean that you just illustrated. It doesn't mean it's not going to ever be right.
Right.
And that doesn't
That's
preclude.
really well said.
It doesn't preclude that there are other things they can do. If you don't have the funds to publish your book, you can still submit to periodicals. One of the things that we like to say at Suzy Q is publishing begets publishing. And so get published. And the other is create a digital footprint, because long before your book goes out there, somebody should be able to find you.
Yes.
And they find you through your social media, they find you through the articles and blogs that you write, and they find you from the events that you participate in.
Long before
and
there's a tangible product.
Right.
Yes.
And if you were to be traditionally published, the moment they look or they're handed your proposal, the first thing they do is they go and they Google search you.
And they being
The publisher.
the publisher.
So they want to know, is this somebody whom is going to sell books?
And that's a reasonable question.
Absolutely.
For them to stay solvent, they have to make money.
Well, a publisher's looking for, do you already have an audience listening to what you have to say? Whether it's fiction or nonfiction, that's what they're looking for. And so even if an author wants to, or a writer wants to go independently publish, they also need to be answering that, they should be answering that question as well, which Shawn addressed in the Who Cares.
And Suzy likes to say, an author without readers is a diarist.
So true. I wish it wasn't true, but it's true. Because we can do the most magnificent work, but if it doesn't reach anyone's hands,
Right.
what value have we brought to the kingdom?
Especially working with Christian authors, I find that God speaks to them while they're writing. And if God's called you to write, you need to write, because He is speaking to you and He's working those things in you. And there are some times that we've worked with a client on promotion, and we will see that they are shriveling up spiritually because they're focusing more on promotion than writing. And so it's incumbent on us to say, let's back up a little, let's slow down, because you need to be writing, because that is important. That's who made you the writer you are today.
When you're in your giftedness zone,
Right.
Yes.
it flows.
Yes.
Do you work exclusively with Christian authors and speakers?
No, actually, we don't. There are certain content or genre that I would not feel comfortable promoting, and so if I were approached by an author of that type of content or genre, I would just be honest and say, I'm not the right fit for you, because I would not feel comfortable with that. But I shared with you the illustration of Aaron and Moses, and Aaron holding up Moses' arms. Well, I also really believe that we need to be a light in darkness. And so I do go and speak and teach at general market writers conferences. We also have a presence at BEA, which is the big book show, retail book show for the general market as well. And we take our authors into there. And so we worked with a gentleman that had a book. He's a specialist on a particular flower. And,
A flower.
And we helped him promote that book, and that didn't conflict with our faith in any way, shape, or form, and we were able to work with him. And so it really has more to do with the subject matter. If we get into somebody who's writing a book that's not faith-based.
Okay.
And one of the aspects there is we do not compartmentalize who we are. So one of our clients in the general market is an expert on memoirs and is not a believer, but is interested in faith-based issues. And so he reviews memoirs on his blog that reaches 3,500 people. So I suggested to him that he review a memoir of a friend of ours who's a professor at a Christian college. And he normally does 2 blogs on this memoir. He did 3 blogs on hers and had recommended that every college freshman should read this book. And he was attracted to the book even more so because it was a Christian book. It's, you know, as Paul said, it was like a sweet aroma. And so our clients know that we're believers, and hopefully we represent Christ and our craft well, and they'll respect us.
And that's not a barrier.
No.
Correct. Once I was asked, well, I'm not a Christian, is that a problem for you? And my response was, I am a Christian, is that a problem for you?
Perfect response.
You know, I mean, because I am when I'm working with a client, there are moments frequently that I'll say, I'd like to table this for now. I'd like to have a few days to pray about this, or seek a little bit more guidance on this, or that type of thing. And so that's been, you know, that's an element, whether we're working with somebody that's writing something faith-based or not, they're going to intersect with my personal faith and Shawn's personal faith. The other thing I think is important to know is for us, the chain of bookstores that we both worked in was owned by Christians, but it was a general market bookstore. And so we're very comfortable in both the CBA and the general market.
That makes complete sense. Your website is?
My website is SuzieQCoaching.com.
Oh, that's new.
It is new, I know.
Are you moving the coaching forward? Pushing it forward?
Yes, we're expanding under the Susie Q brand. We are bringing on other coaches that are experts in their right. And so we will have coaches that can help with social media, with writing a nonfiction book, a fiction book, and various others. We're moving slowly because I think that's important to not expand too quickly. But yes, if anybody has the old website, they can still find us because it's all being directed to the new one.
And what's that?
The old one is SuzieQ4U.com, and that's Susie, S-U-Z-Y, the letter Q, the number 4, the letter U.com.
And the new one again
is? And the new one is SuzieQCoaching.com, and it's Susie, S-U-Z-Y-Q, coaching.
And when they contract with you, and then the other coaches fall under your umbrella, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So it's still, they're contracting with the Susie Q brand, but I'm going to pair each client with the proper coach. For instance, Shawn is one of our strategy coaches. And so if I have an author that I meet with that I feel like they really need more of what is Shawn's specialty, I'm going to say, you are welcome to meet with me. However, I think Shawn is going to be the better fit because he's better at the overall plan.
Great.
Well, and thank you so much for getting the information out. I'd love to be able to just remind my children that my birthday is June 6th.
I'm just saying. Anything else other than that important announcement? Anything else you'd like to make sure and mention?
We have fun with our authors, too.
We do. We like to have a lot of fun. We are professionals, but we like to enjoy the journey that God has placed us on.
My clients become my friends, or my friends become my clients. Have you found that to be the same?
Absolutely, yes.
An important part of your life.
It sure is.
Thank you very much for your time. Again, this is Suzanne and Shawn Kuhn. They are on faculty at the Greater Philadelphia Christian Writers Conference. Come and enjoy us. Join us next time. This is the quality of people and professional instructors available here at this conference. Thanks very much for watching.